Everyone, I'm really honoured today to have MJ Renshaw with us. Now, she is an incredible health guide who has uniquely combined science and spirituality to enable her clients to heal and regain control of their health. And today we'll be going over how our nervous system can improve in order to better manage energy and fatigue, and the important role that the nervous system does have in all of this. So welcome today, MJ.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I know we were just saying how we love this topic, so hopefully everyone else loves it as much as we do. But we will be covering quite a few interesting things today. So let's dive right in. Now, what is the difference between the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system?
So essentially, these are two parts of our autonomic nervous system that work together in unison, and we love both of them and we want them both to be very happy and balanced. So autonomic nervous system, which is kind of the umbrella term for both of them, means that it's working automatically, so we don't have to think about it, which is nice.
Yeah.
So we've got the sympathetic side, which is, people tend to refer to it as the fight or flight side.
Right.
And I call it like our action nervous system. It gets us up, it gets us going, it makes sure that we get things done. And then there's a bunch of physiological things that come with that, which are beneficial. So then we've got the parasympathetic side, and that makes sure that we're digesting our food, absorbing our nutrients, resting, repairing, healing. And we want to be fluctuating in and out of those,
Right.
all the time, so that we can get things done. And then we can also repair, absorb nutrients, and heal.
Sure.
So our brain and our senses are kind of always looking around, assessing our situation. And they think like, are we safe right now? Yes. Are we relaxed? Okay, then we can go into parasympathetic mode and kind of, do all the maintenance things, make sure that we're absorbing and digesting our food, eliminating properly. Or it will say, you know what, we're not in a safe space right now. There's actually too much stimulation. So I'm going to put the sympathetic nervous system on, and then that's going to make sure that we're, ready in case we need to fight or we need to flight.
Sure.
I can go through all the like physiological things if you guys want to go deeper on that.
I think we might, because I've also heard that people get into the sympathetic nervous system too much. We've talked about fight and flight a lot in this event as well, because it really does apply to burnout and fatigue quite a lot. Yeah. So tell us what happens briefly with the sympathetic. So go into that for us.
Yeah, for sure. So our bodies are designed so elegantly, and it's really cute when you break it down. So the sympathetic nervous system does a lot of different things to different organs to make sure that we're prepared to fight or flight.
Yep.
So, it's going to raise our blood pressure. It's going to raise our heart rate to make sure that we've got blood to go to muscles so that we can do all the running we need to do. It's going to dilate your eyes so that you can have better vision to see if there's danger. It's going to send signals to your sweat glands so that you can sweat and become a little bit slippery.
Right.
It's just like preparing you so that you can protect yourself the best that you possibly can.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously this becomes, a problem when you are actually not in danger, but you live next to a highway that has a lot of noise, or there's a bunch of people screaming in the other room, but they're having fun, but you're inappropriately reacting to it. That's what we don't want. But our sympathetic nervous system, the way it is designed, it's just a protective mechanism.
Sure.
On the other hand, our parasympathetic, when we call that rest and digest. So we know that's like a more calm portion of our nervous system. And when that's working, we're digesting our food properly. We're going pee and poo properly. We have proper blood going back to the organs away from the muscles so that we can actually heal. Our liver's going to work better. So we do need both of them, but we need them in balance.
Sure. And what is the balance? So is it pretty much like we're naturally flowing from one to the other all day? Or is it that when we're awake, it's the sympathetic nervous system keeping us going, and then we're asleep? Is that how it works?
Essentially, that is how it works. I don't know if it's so like awake sympathetic
Sure.
or, you know, asleep parasympathetic, or I hear some people say like, we want to turn sympathetic nervous system off. I don't think either of them is actually turned off at any point in
Okay.
time. They're working together, and sometimes one is overtaking the other one.
Yeah.
So you just want to make sure that when your sympathetic nervous system is turned on, like say you go outside, someone honks at you and,
Yeah.
you know, you get kind of startled, you can appropriately come back to the
Right.
parasympathetic and not kind of stay there for
Stay
hours.
in that state. Yeah.
Yeah. So we want to be able to recognize that our nervous system is able to go back and forth between both of them, not avoid one, but just, you know, fluctuate.
So what does this have to do with burnout then? Do you
Yeah.
believe?
So basically, I mean, if we want to look at how a lot of people talk about burnout, they're talking about the adrenal gland. And this is a gland that sits on top of our kidney, and any gland in our body that is part of our endocrine system, it doesn't do anything unless our nervous system tells it to, right?
Sure. Sure.
So any sensory input coming in through your body isn't being interpreted by the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland is being told what to do because of the interpretation of the nervous system,
Right.
if that kind of makes sense. So it's the messenger. A lot of people I've seen can actually get a really good grasp of their hormones and their adrenal system just by working with their nervous system, because
Right.
at the end of the day, if you can control how you react to things or how you interpret things or your environment, then you can control whether that adrenal gland is getting the signal of stress or not.
How do you suggest then that we can do that? Like, firstly, if people are just learning about this now,
Mhm.
how do we actually know physically or mentally which one we're in? Like right now,
Yeah.
what would we be in? We'd probably be in, I mean, we're not highly stressed, but we're certainly talking and alert.
Yeah.
So we might have both systems going, but how do you know if that sympathetic system is overrun or a bit stressed? Or yeah, like you're right, if you go out and someone honks at you or startles you or
Yeah.
something, that kind of heightens your breathing, your heart rate. Are those the signs we look for to know that we may have hit into that state?
That's an amazing question. One of my favorite questions, because it's very arbitrary. You know,
Right,
you can take someone and you can ask them like, "Are you feeling stressed right now?" And
right.
even though they're sitting there like this, they'll be like, "No."
Mm,
Um, so, you know, it's really actually nice to have a barometer. And one thing that I do when I work with a lot of people, if they are interested in it, and something that I do myself, is I track my heart rate variability. So
okay.
you can get some sort of a watch or ring or device. And basically, our heart rate variability is a metric for the body that can tell you whether you're in a sympathetic state or in a parasympathetic state. So it's very
Okay.
easy. You know, you can think, it's very cool to look at too, because you can think you're doing something relaxing, like watching, you know, Walking Dead, but really you'll look and be like, oh my gosh, I am so stressed out right now.
Walking Dead, is that your favorite show?
No. I hate scary shows,
Oh,
but I watched it one time and I was like, I am like acting like I'm about to be attacked here.
right.
Um,
That's
so
zombies.
it's kind of, it gives you good data on, you know,
Yeah.
how your day is and what stresses you out, because different things stress different people out. Like my boyfriend
Yes.
loves going for a car ride. You put me in the car and I'm like, oh my God, can we just get there?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's really helpful to have that feedback. Heart rate variability is just essentially, if we break it down, the higher it is, the more your heart is listening and interpreting with the vagus nerve. So
Yeah.
when you're calm, it's going to say, oh, I can put this much blood here, that I'll raise my blood pressure a little bit here. It's like almost this little dance. So there's a lot of variability
Sure. So it's
because
quite
the work.
sorry, MJ, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, I was just going to say it's elegant.
Yeah, it's amazing. And
Mhm.
so it's really individual then though. So our interpretation of stress or the way that each of us get to the sympathetic system can be triggered by different things. So something that activates yours or you to go up with your heart rate may not be the same as me or someone else watching this. So we're all different. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Oh yeah. Based off of someone's memories, their genetics,
Right.
their belief system, it's so different. You can give a puppy to one person and they'll just melt and be in a parasympathetic state. And then another person who's, uncomfortable around dogs might just feel
Sure.
very stressed. So most people can know when they're relaxed and when they're stressed. But if
Yeah.
you're someone who you're just kind of not sure because you've been stressed for so long,
Right.
it's nice to have a metric. So I always say heart rate variability is my first one, because it's just, you see the number. If it's high, you're in parasympathetic state. If it's low, you're
Yeah.
stressed.
So
And
that
then
heart rate monitor, do you think, or a watch or one of those sorts of things? Yep.
yeah, I love them. I'm a big fan of having a metric, a
Yeah.
feedback almost. It's nice to know, like, here's my progression, or just knowing how you're feeling.
Yeah, definitely. That can be really helpful. So what do you see then as the common roadblocks to people being at their best health and energy from what you've done with clients and what you've been trained in?
I think one of the biggest ones is just a lack of appreciation for how productive rest is,
Right.
if that makes sense. So there's a lot of, feelings of guilt or shame if we're resting,
Yeah.
or, we feel like we always got to go, go, go. Or if we're going to be successful, we have to hustle. And it's not necessarily the truth, because, life is a marathon. Like, maybe life is like an ultra marathon.
Right.
So we got to, like, really relish in taking that rest, napping if we want to, having more fun and play, um, really, like, paring down our schedule so that we make time for those things. I find just changing your mindset on, rest isn't the opposite of being productive. It's actually a part of being productive.
Sure.
There, our bodies can't handle being in sympathetic all the time. We need to make time and delegate time towards, having fun, making sure we're with our friends and family, and resting. Like, it is a part of being successful and a part of being
Yes.
a happy, healthy human.
Absolutely. And that's really interesting because even athletes and people training at a high level in exercise and sports, their rest days are their most important.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we have, like, in society, to do with lifestyle and goals and things. That's something that we've pushed out to the side to fit more in. But really, the best athletes in the world, their coaches are like, no, you have to have this
Oh yeah.
downtime. Even when I worked in gyms years ago, MJ, with bodybuilders, I worked in these crazy bodybuilding gyms, but that's for another story, another
Mm-hmm.
day. And their rest was so important so their muscles could show,
Yeah.
not the training. It was like the training was part of it, but then the ones who were successful and did well at the bodybuilding comps knew that the rest days were the ones that actually helped their muscles tone and actually get where they needed to get to.
It's so true. And you know what? That works with anything you're doing. So if
Sure.
you're a parent, or if you're running your own company, or if you're in school, you know what I mean? Like, you want to be performing well at all those things. And that includes resting always.
Yes.
Um, we've all probably pulled an all-nighter at one point in time, and we know how it feels the
Yeah.
next day. You're not
Yeah.
exactly sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on that as well, rest doesn't necessarily mean sleep, because that's the other thing I've realized with even a lot of my clients. They think, oh, well, I've got a full day, that's my sleep, is my rest. But then the sleep's not that great quality either.
Yeah.
But resting, you're referring to just doing slower level activities. Is that what you would mean it to be?
Yeah. It's very, again, it's one of those things that's very individual. Like,
Yeah.
there are some people where, they get into a meditation practice and they start feeling amazing. And then there's some people who are setting the timer for meditating and they're like, I am not feeling amazing. So
Sure.
it's so individual what you find relaxing and what you find
Sure.
resting. And I always tell people, like, don't judge with what it is, because we've got this like moral high ground. Like if watching a baking show for 2 hours just makes you feel calm and good, do it. Like,
absolutely.
it's more important to rest than wonder whether you're doing the right kind of rest, or you know.
That's a really good point there.
Yeah.
What do you believe then is most important to keeping ourselves balanced? Is it down to our nervous system and our responses, or is there an external influence as well? I mean, things happen in life. We're going to get stressed or busy, sure, like things happen. What do you think there?
So I kind of have, this is the approach that I use for myself. And then I typically tell other people, right? So for me, I always try to, make sure that my environment is set up in a way so that it can be as relaxing as it possibly can be for me. So I've got, dim lights going. I'm usually playing calm, weird spa music in the house. I set it up so that it's really nice and really relaxing, and I feel very comfortable, and I find I work better that way. I'm just not rushing. But that being said, there's a lot of things outside of my control. So, a global pandemic being one of them. Sure. And there's a lot of things that happen that just bring on a lot of stress. So when that happens, if I can't control the situation, then I just want to have tools in my back pocket, which I know can help me feel not stressed. I mean, that goes back to the heart rate variability. So when I'm wearing mine and I see that I'm in a stressed state, I know for me, if I start doing a certain type of breath, which is just 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, very easy, I can put myself into a parasympathetic state in like 2 minutes.
Right.
So it's cool to have tools in your back pocket that help you feel, really relaxed. And then you can say like, oh my gosh, it's easy. Like, I'm in traffic now, I got stressed out, and then all of a sudden I'm doing the tool that I know works for me, and I'm now in a parasympathetic state. And you quantify that time, right? Putting yourself back into that parasympathetic state, and you're all of a sudden healing a lot more different things than your body was able to before, because it was too stressed out.
That's great. So that's really seeming to me that it's quite accessible and an easy thing to do, because it sounds kind of like if you're just learning this. I mean, when I first learned all of this a while back, I was thinking, that doesn't even make sense to me. I didn't even know I was in a stress state, especially having the fatigue years back. But getting back to the balanced state seemed like it was such a difficult thing. But in actual fact, it's quite easy and quite fast, and probably something people could do in under 5 minutes, if not 2, right?
Yes, I really love, it's like that thing when you're stressed out and you go to a yoga class and the yoga instructor is like, just breathe. And you're like, you just are like, that's not going to help me.
I've just stopped the traffic. I'm here. Blah, blah.
Yeah. And you're just like looking at them like they have 3 heads. But so one of the things I love to do is like, okay, let's deconstruct that and talk about what happens when you breathe, because it's one thing to just tell someone, this is going to help you, but it's another thing to actually walk them through, okay, this is how it works. When you breathe out, your vagus is going to tell your heart rate to slow down. When you breathe in this certain rhythm, your parasympathetic nervous system is going to take over. And these aren't, maybe things. This is reflexes that are built into our body that 100% will work all the time for 100% of the people.
Yeah.
So
that's really good to know as well. It's actually scientifically, physiologically what's going on. It's not just a thing and like a breathing thing, or yeah.
And it's also nice to know that it's you doing it. It's one thing to have your GABA or your L-theanine with you in your purse so that when you get too stressed out you can take a supplement, but it's also nice that if you forgot your purse you're still going to be okay.
That's something that we have control over no matter what.
I love that about it.
That's good. And even going on from that, like I would say too, let's say if you've hit that stressed out state for whatever reason, or you have to go to work, or you have to deal with kids, and you need to calm down, and you don't want to be like that the rest of the day, because mornings can be crazy too, for example. Even if you kind of shake your body out, like do a few twisting movements, just kind of shake it out a little bit and move, and then do the breathing if you feel that you're too far gone to just go from
Yeah.
like up here to the breathing. I
Yeah.
find there's that middle ground sometimes, even for myself, to go, okay, maybe I'll just use a bit of dynamic movement here just to recenter and connect with my
Yeah.
muscles again.
Yeah, you've brought up such a good point. Like movement is huge. We used to think that fascia wasn't connected to the nervous system, and now we know it is. So
Right.
that's another reflex you can use. Like even moving, or just even like simply stretching. When we create that signal of stretch, it's going to send to the nervous system, I'm relaxed.
That's great. That's why
If we
people
fit,
feel better when they're stretching. And
yeah.
that's why we'll go into this in different topics too. But yeah, that's such a big thing compared to
A lot of
contracting
it,
the muscles as compared
yeah.
to stretching. It's a different feeling.
Yeah, a lot of it is just like the body's so elegantly designed that if you can change the sensory inputs to the
Mm,
nervous system, you can change almost all the things. Like it's wild.
that is
Um,
good stuff.
yeah, it's very exciting.
What are your best tips to helping busy people then prevent burnout and better manage energy?
Yeah, I think mine are going to sound so cliche. So my my first one is make time to relax. Like factor that in, what I was saying before, factor that into being productive and successful, because being productive and successful does depend on if you're able to recover and relax. It's equally as important. Um, the other thing I would say is that don't stress too much about being healthy. And what I mean by that is that because we're all so individual, meditation and kale might work for one person, whereas another person, that might actually cause them more stress because we all react so differently to different things. So I
Sure.
always tell people, like, really listen to your body and your intuition and what feels good and safe for you. There's no like good or bad. It's just you got to work with what you got right now, and there's no hierarchy to things
Yeah,
in terms of the health world. Sometimes we get a little black and white with that, but and it can be a bit overwhelming and stressful.
sure.
So
That
don't
definitely
stress.
adds to it then. Yeah,
Yeah, you don't want it. We don't want to add more stress. And
definitely.
then the last thing I would say is just mind how you're thinking. It's 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 very important to, especially our nervous system. If we think about our thoughts, they're very powerful. If you think about right now, just like licking a lemon, you're going to get a tingly
Yeah,
sensation here. And we didn't even lick the lemon. That's just a
sure,
thought.
sure.
So we know that anything that we're thinking can change our physiology. It's going to send signals to the nervous system, and it's going to create neurotransmitters or hormones. And sometimes it's ones that we don't really want to create. So, sometimes when I catch my mind going a little bit, what my family calls helicopter brain, I just say, like, yeah, it's such a perfect term. I always just say, okay, I'm going to list 10 things I'm really grateful for right now. And that just can help your whole body relax because you're focusing on good things, things that make you feel calm. And yeah, I think that's like such a helpful tool for people.
That's a huge tip because the thoughts are so we can try all these different strategies and tools, breathing, movement, getting more organized, getting ourselves out of that. But at the end of the day, if you don't control what the thoughts are, you're still kind of putting yourself back into that state, maybe accidentally, because maybe that's part of it that hasn't you haven't become as mindful yet. I know with myself, it takes a lot for me. I can do all the practices and do all of that. But for me,
Yeah.
I find that third point you mentioned is the hardest to go. Sometimes if I'm maybe overthinking things, or some people say, I've had clients say, oh, I overanalyze this, or maybe I shouldn't worry about this, or like a work problem or a family thing. And it's
Yeah.
the thinking that gets us. So
Yeah.
people are quite good at getting to the other modalities or strategies. So how can we become more mindful of that as well? I love the gratitude thing too. So if you find you're getting a bit anxious perhaps, or a bit overwhelmed
Hmm.
or overthinking, pull it back and be grateful. Write down, maybe journaling. What else do you can we go into that a bit
Yeah.
more?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, for me, like there's different things that work for so many different people. Like my partner, for instance, he's a big prayer guy. If he gets overwhelmed, all of a sudden he's like got his head down and he's praying. And then I've got people who just, you know, they just start thinking, okay, what are 5 things that I can see right now in my environment? I can see a
Mhm.
sculpture, I can see a plant. They start grounding themselves in terms of their senses. Is there
Right.
anything I can smell? Is there anything I can touch? Um, that really helps ground the nervous system as well. You can, you know, think about it from a very scientific point of view too. If you're not into meditation or mindset things, you can think, okay, I've got my vagus nerve. I know if I stimulate my vagus nerve, I'm going to feel relaxed. So, what stimulates the vagus nerve? Things like gargling, singing. You can go get a glass of salt water and just gargle it, and that
Okay.
usually makes you feel really relaxed. Having a cold shower, that's usually one that will reset the nervous system and make people feel relaxed.
Oh, you would
There's a
think that
lot.
would do the opposite, right?
I know, isn't that wild? Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, I'm personally addicted to them. I can't go a day without it. I'm like, oh, I need my cold shower.
Right. That's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
It's
great.
got
So, sorry, go ahead.
no. I was just gonna say that they're lovely, but yeah.
So then doing those sorts of things can get us into that more relaxed state, and then that will actually slow down our thoughts anyway, right? So
Yep.
then you're kind of mastering that aspect of the thought control. Is there any other tips that you could give us there or that you want to finish up with today?
Yeah, I think I could speak to a little bit about like, you know, when we just take these simple tools. So a part of the thing that happens when we're in a sympathetic nervous system is that we're not using our prefrontal cortex as much as we'd like. And that's why there's such a strong connection between the sympathetic nervous system and willpower, where all of a sudden we are not thinking about the future too much. We're just thinking about here right now. What can I have? What can I do? Like it's there's a lack of willpower almost when we're in that state
Right.
because it's all about survival. So when we purposefully just use a simple tool to put yourself into a parasympathetic nervous system, all of a sudden our prefrontal cortex turns back on. And when that's on, we don't have these frantic thoughts anymore because it's basically our rational control center that's saying, you know what, you're thinking something right now that isn't true.
Wow.
Or you've been thinking the same thought for the last 10 minutes. You know, you've got this like part of your brain that's like, whoa, 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 what's going on back there? Like there's a lot of weird thoughts. Look around, like you've got a beautiful life, you've got, you know, food in the fridge, like a lot of rational things start to come online. um, which is real. It's really fascinating how uh, even just something as simple as just remembering how powerful breathing is can change our thoughts. It's very cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's a really good point too, because I've also heard that using that part of the brain helps us more with creativity too.
Yeah.
So by doing all these things, you can essentially become more productive, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is why all the top CEOs,
Mm,
they're doing all the biohacking things because they know like if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not making the good decisions, resting, making sure you're in a calm state, you're not making good decisions for your company, or you're not present
sure.
with your family, or you know, we've only got one life. We want to be present and happy for most of it, at least.
Absolutely. That's such a
Yeah.
good point. I'd love to continue with you. We'll have to set up another interview. I think we could talk all day about this.
Yes.
So fascinating. I really hope everyone, thanks for joining us today, and really hope you got a lot out of this interview. Thank you, MJ, for joining us as
No
well.
problem.
Now, if people want to connect with you, they can head to mjrenshaw.ca and earthconnectionoil.com. And we also have a special code for everyone to use Brilliant15 for 15% off the earth oil. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so it's a probiotic skincare line I developed. Going back to all the things we talked about before, I have very sensitive skin, and I didn't want to be putting, you know, a ton of chemicals on them. So I developed my own probiotic skincare line, and it actually has a probiotic from the dirt that helps you feel calm. So
I love it.
yeah, it's fun.
I love the name too, earth oil.
Yeah.
It literally is earth oil then.
It really, really is. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. And what other services do you offer on your other website?
So I work mainly one-on-one with clients, and we try to figure out, what's going on with their health. And then we take a very spiritual and very scientific approach
Sounds
to
good to
helping them
me.
and creating
Yep.
a plan. Yeah, it's fun.
Great. We'll connect with MJ, everyone, and really look forward to seeing you in the next interview. Bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye.